Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Billy Marshall, who's here to share with us his new book, Your Happier Life Toolbox: How a Data-Driven Dad Cracked the Code on Happiness, and You Can Too. Could the real secret to a happier life be hiding in simple daily habits we overlook? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Billy Marshall is the data-driven dad who cracked the code on happiness using science. He spent decades designing technical frameworks and data tools to help business leaders make smart, analytical decisions. But when faced with a puzzle of his own well-being, stuck on a question his degrees and decades hadn't answered despite a loving family and outward success, he realized he needed a new framework for the most important project of all, his own life. So welcome to the show, Billy Marshall.
Thanks, Marianne. It's great being here. It's actually a little wild to be here and to have the opportunity to share my story, so thanks.
Well, my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So how did this book come to be?
Oh, yeah, good question. It actually started, it was about 2 years ago, and I was lying in bed having one of those, let's take a look inside and figure out who you are, Billy Marshall moments. And I actually had to ask Google for help. And I went to the search bar and I typed in 4 words, how to be happy. And again, I'm a grandfather asking Google how to be happy. Regardless, as I'm kind of scrolling through the results, I was fortunate enough to land upon a podcast, The Happiness Lab by Dr. Laurie Santos. I'm like, okay, this sounds great. I'm going to learn how to be happy and listen to this podcast. So every day, our little golden retriever, his name is Yeti, him and I walk on the beach every day. So we're going to take our walk and I'm going to listen to this podcast. So I listened to my first one. As a matter of fact, I listened to two on that trip, and I was really hooked out of the gate. And Yeti and I would keep walking, and I would listen to other podcasts. And I, in essence, was binge listening. I'm going to go through all of these podcasts. I'm on fire. I'm so excited. I'll share with anybody, anybody who's willing to listen to me. I'm going to tell them about some of this stuff that I'm learning. So I'm diving in and I'm getting all of these nuggets as I'm going through her podcast, which in essence, they went back years and I just started cranking through them. And as I was going through them, the real monster lesson that kind of came home and really hit me was that the extent that we have so much agency over our own sense of happiness kind of blew me away. And again, I'm learning this as a grandfather, a moderately educated grandfather, and I'm learning to the extent of, how much influence we have in building out a happier life. So this became what I'm going to call like some all-out like personal research project. I started digging in, doing some other research on my side. I cranked through 200 plus episodes, and I found myself having fun doing the research. But B, I was forgetting some of this stuff as I would get geared up to tell my kids about it, and I started putting it into Excel. I logged all of this science into Excel, and that became my research. I was going to create this Excel sheet for my kids. I have 5 kids, all of which are out of the house. Some of them have children of their own. And I'm gonna share with them this Excel sheet of all this cool stuff that I'm learning, and I won't have to wear them down every time they come over. And as I was going through this research adventure, if you will, I was also listening to the podcast and took the time to really look at the world that we're living in from a happiness lens, if you will. And, I'm not the only person in the world that wants to know how to be happy. I might be a little odd Googling it at 2:00 in the morning, but, the universal desire that really all of us have for our children and loved ones ultimately is to be happy, right? So that was ringing clear in my head. And number 2 was hitting home, and this is unfortunate. The world that we're living in right now, I'm going to just say it's safe to say, Marianne, that we're not getting happier. It's particularly evident, the data in particular with the youth. Preventable deaths are up from suicide to, alcoholism, et cetera, depression rates. It's from a a metric for us as a world, a country in particular. We're not getting happier. So we want to be happy. We're not getting happier. And I'm learning for the first time in my life the extent of how living a happier life is so teachable and learnable. So I'm just kind of pondering on this, and I've got this Excel sheet with my color tabs, and I've got some action points and all of these cool studies I'm getting ready to give to the kids. I'm like, okay, maybe I can, post this Excel sheet on the internet or something. And that thought didn't last long. I could barely some of my kids just wouldn't even read it. I was reading from the sheet to them. So that wasn't going to work. So as I was pondering, I had what I'm going to call one of those like movements of the hearts, I was like kind of just wrestling with the idea, and everything kind of got quiet and still for a moment. And this, if you will, message, this voice spoke to my heart and said, Billy, this needs to be a book. Put all of this stuff that you just learned into a book. Well, now I'm going to go into full-blown like debate with myself. Like, I can't write a book. I write emails for work. I'm a data guy. I build dashboards. I'm not going to be able to write a book, but I have learned over my many years at this stage that voice does always win. But I argue with it a little bit out of the gate. So I go throw the idea past my loving wife Susie at first, and I say this with a smile on my face. Unfortunately, she said, "Sounds like a great idea." Now, keep in mind, I've been wearing her and the kids down. I share it with the kids. You're like, "Dad, great idea, Daddy. Go write a book. Friends, go write a book." So, needless to say, I got busy. And August of this year, Your Happier Life Toolbox, How a Data-Driven Dad Cracked the Code on Happiness and How You Can Too, it was born. I like to say it was the book born on the beach. And that book, that, the Your Happier Life Toolbox, really ultimately became, Marianne, the book that I was looking for 2 years or so ago at 2:00 in the morning. So that's how the book came to be. Thanks so much for asking.
What a great story. I always love hearing how these wonderful ideas come into being. So, can you share with us what's in the toolbox? Because I know you've got quite a bit.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first off, keep in mind, I built this from the perspective of just wanting to build an Excel sheet, right? And they can hold 1,000,000 rows. There's no limit. And I really wanted to provide my children what I'm going to call a comprehensive guide so that they can, to in essence, guide them to live the life they love. So I couldn't fit into that, 6 steps for this or 12 for that. All of the others, they seem to max out right around 12. I loved Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Effective People, by the way. Anyhow, I have 42 science-backed tools that are I'm going to call them the needle-moving tools, and I'll get into some of them in a little bit. So there's 42 science-backed tools, and there's 37 myths and lies. Again, all of these are supported by science. There's my citations, there's 100 of them in the back of the book. So where science is revealed that here's 37 lies that we unfortunately, if you will, chase that take us to all the wrong places. So within those 42 tools are spread throughout the book in 3 sections. The first one's really about your own headspace, if you will. It's called the inner game. These are those tools that transform your mental patterns, really ultimately from enemy to ally. Things like meditation, self-compassion, gratitude, optimism, etc. That's the first section. The second section is what I call your success systems. These are habits that'll kind of ignite energy and purpose in your life. Things like exercise, sleep, engaging in lifelong learning, strengthening digital resilience. That's a big one in today's world, right? Decluttering made the cut. In the third section, and this is really what I'm going to say where the juice is, right? So you've kind of theoretically, you're working on your own interior game. You're building out a strong system on your own, but it's really in the end, it's connection that matters. And that's the third and final section, right? These are those strategies to create relationships and communities that ultimately are what bring value to our lives. So things like expressing appreciation and love, right? Sharing authentically and vulnerably, practicing empathy, right? So again, every one of these have science behind them. Though I really worked hard to keep my opinions. I do. Each one of these have, I'll call them, war stories of mine, where every once in a while I won a couple of those wars, but I lost plenty of them. I mix in some of my stories in the science, and each one of these tools also have what I'm going to say action steps. So how can the reader build out that tool if it's something that interests them?
Well, and so to dovetail with that, do you have an example that you like to share with us?
Sure, Marianne. This one actually it's the first tool in the book, and it's a go-to out there. And it was this particular study. This I'll share with you the science behind gratitude. And Dr. Martin Seligman, who was the godfather of positive psychology. And by the way, I did not know that. I barely knew his name going into all this, unfortunately. But he ran a study, what he called the gratitude intervention. And he had the participants in the study to write down 3 things each day for a week that they were grateful for. That's all they had to do, write down 3 things. And what his study showed is that it showed significant increases in happiness and decreases in depression. Months later, the participants wrote them down. So those participants that stuck with it for 1 week, writing these 3 things down, 6 months later were measurably less depressed and happier. Right? Other studies since then that kind of added to that, where it's revealed that, taking the time to think and be grateful and writing them down reduces cortisol and the nasty stress hormone. It boosts serotonin and dopamine, right? Just taking the time to be grateful has a chemical impact in our body that bring us those things, those feel good. It's really, you're giving yourself a natural mood enhancer without a script. So, and then it went from there. So I by the way, I came in this thinking gratitude was about saying thank you to grandma, right? Like, I know there was an upside to it, but to unpack the science and then to learn that the more you do this, that your brain builds pathways, if you will, that just make it more inclined to find things to be more grateful for. So, huge upside there that just, again, the science behind it really kind of blew me away. Again, the book packs in 37 of these, and this one here is this one's a fun one. Material possessions bring lasting happiness. That's a lie we all chase, and I think there's a whole lot of people putting commercials on TV that might get upset with this. But ultimately, what it brings out is that experiences beat possessions every single time when we're looking to spend our money. Clearly that, the concerts with friends, those camping trips, even when everything falls apart, but you laugh so much you're going to cry, those things, they connect us to other people, right? They deliver more joy than any gadget you could ever have. And then the research continue to demonstrate that, those that want to just accumulate more stuff, ultimately, Marianne, they have lower life satisfaction over time. Like the gadget comes in, they immediately get used to it being around, and sooner or later it winds up cluttering up their house. So again, for me, it was like a life-changing event where now I'm just more inclined, like, okay, I'm going to so-and-so's for a birthday present. I'm going to spend money on creating an experience for them as opposed to a gadget. So those are two examples of what's inside the book.
Well, it sounds like you have so many great tools, and it would take a data guy to pull this all together because there is so much out there and so many different things. And I have to tell you, I mean, when I've done kind of gratitude or happiness, my own little happiness journey, I mean, I forget a lot of the things that they teach you. So it's great that it's all there.
I know. Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks. I know and to your point, each one of these tools, there's stacks of books written on, right? But when I started this, I didn't realize, and I couldn't find, getting back to where the book became what I was looking for at 2 a.m. I really just couldn't find a book that I could give to my kids and say, read this, and this is going to help you live a happier life. So what started as a, crazy Excel sheet became this book. But yeah, it's been a blast.
It sounds like it. It really sounds like it. And now, do you have like a reader's call to action that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, and I end the book with that. And if you don't mind, good question. I'm gonna start with how somehow the book created a call to action for me that ultimately kind of does land on the reader. But, you know, and I appreciate, and Marianne, you've kind of gotten in my shoes, but like inside of my head right now, again, I'm a grandfather. I've never written a book. I've just started listening to a podcast. And now I've got inside my head that again, coming back to happiness is this universal desire for all of us and our loved ones, right? We've got that. We're not getting happier. Fine. We talked about that. You know, Your Happier Life Toolbox really does have the information to help people live happier lives. And I say this also with a smile on my face. Unfortunately, and it really isn't unfortunate, but it's fun to say it this way, the feedback, Marianne, has been overwhelmingly positive. Like lives are being changed. And it's not because of me. I simply consolidated the science, right? That I did do. I consolidated science, but these aren't the opinions of Billy Marshall, right? But I'm getting countless texts from many people who claim to be non-readers. I don't read a book, Billy, but this really hit home for me. And lives are being changed. You know, my mother-in-law, right? Our neighbors, retired teachers, where they're saying, I wish I would have known these things earlier in my life. And I actually put the book out on Amazon. I eventually, you know, like I said, in August. And so far, I only have 5-star reviews, right? I was the #1 book on Amazon in the self-help space in November. And I'm kind of like, to be honest, freaked out about it all. What started, you know, it all started with me doing a 2 a.m. Google search on how to be happy, making a small, you know, journey to listening to a podcast. You know, fine, I'll put it into Excel. Now I'm going to do this book. And now, Marianne, I'm at this next chapter where I have no choice but to move on and share the beauty of how we all can build happier lives together. So I don't know if you saw it. I know when we originally got onto the call, and the reason I had to even push our meeting to later was I got equipment. I'm building a podcast. I mean, who the heck am I? What do I know about building a podcast? But I've got all this equipment because a lot of my friends and family say, I don't have time to read. Right. So fine, we're going to get it out there in an audible version. So there's going to be a Happier Life podcast. And, you know, my wife, fortunately, she's all in. She helps me a ton, and we're really looking forward to that next chapter of our lives. So then the listener, right, the reader of the book, and this is really true for all of us. And I want to say, you know, recognizing how learnable happiness is, we all have, and I want to say, like a responsibility to some extent to learn this, you know, for our own lives and to share it with others. Because ultimately, you know, the more each one of us work on our own life to be happier and to share with others, then we all go on and just make our small corner of the world a happier place.
You've got so much good information in your book. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit is that so many people struggle. There's like this gap between knowing what makes them happier and actually doing it. So how does your toolbox bridge the knowing and doing divide?
Yeah, that's a great question, Marianne. And what we're trying to do, to your point, is trying to catch everybody where they're at, right? A lot of people even know the book is great to read, but they're not going to read it. They're going to maybe listen to an audible. And the desire ultimately is for them to kind of fill their own head, because there's some cognitive change that's going on in learning the information. So things like making it accessibly and audible. Our website, which you can find at www.yourhappier.life, I built a book club guide so that we can create what I'm going to call one of those third places where people can read the books together. And I've got a guide, even a facilitator's guide out on the book to kind of help people, you know, take it to that next step, because sometimes sharing, as you know, really kind of makes things you hold yourself to a different degree of accountability, right? So creating those spaces and communities ultimately where people have that opportunity to grow on their own is where we're going. And I'm
love that.
As I go. I'm still figuring it out myself. You know, I'm again 60 years old, trying to figure out what I would want to be when I grow up. So,
I think a lot of us are trying to figure it out, and I don't think that's a journey with a destination end. I think it's something that we constantly are improving as we keep going.
Yeah, beautiful journey. Yep.
So what's next for you? I mean, I heard about your podcast. I love that. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it really is, and it's really the wandering out for the next thing. What am I going to dedicate the rest of my life to? And it really has taken it to where I at this stage, I've done what I could do, if you will, in how I work and how I spend my time. But I have, ultimately what I'm going to say, no choice, and I'm very happy. I'm thrilled about it. But to take the time and to spend the rest of our lives sharing the science of happiness and really sharing the good news that we all have true agency in building happier lives and ultimately making the world a happier place, one person at a time.
Well, what a just phenomenal journey you're on. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about not just the work you're doing, but your podcast?
Yeah, thanks, Marianne. So first of all, again, our website is the center, right? www.yourhappier.life. And on there, we've got a Facebook page where we've got, even a Facebook group where they're sharing, every few days we'll put out different questions out on our Facebook page. On Instagram, we're building out our LinkedIn pages. And again, all of those you can reach via our website, but our handles, even across all of the different networks, is wrapped around Your Happier Life. So that'll be the podcast. It's not out yet. I'm really hoping within the next couple of weeks I'll have my first one out there. And again, to your point before, it's been a wonderful journey. I have no idea where this is going to go, but it's a blessing. And the fact that it's also, what it's done, Marianne, when I go to, my wife and I, we just went to a fire where a whole bunch of football families, football season was over for the local football team. And what I find is in writing this book, we're having so many more vulnerable conversations with people where they're talking to us about things that matter in their life a whole lot more. So not only did the book change us, but just who we're becoming while taking in these lessons has really changed us and made this journey, this chapter of our life just wonderful for Susie and I to be walking in.
Well, what a great journey you're on. Well, Billy, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Awesome, Marianne. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, thank you, Billy. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Your Happier Life Toolbox: How a Data-Driven Dad Cracked the Code on Happiness, and you can too. Make sure to visit Billy's website, yourhappier.life, for more information on his work and to be part of his community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.